parents or guardian. Under 17 not admitted without parents or guardian. Under 17 not admitted without parents or guardian.
Good evening, fans of fantastic films, and thank you for joining us on our second broadcast of the Drive-In Asylum double feature. I'm Bill Van Ryn. I'm the editor of the fanzine Drive-In Asylum and the curator of the Facebook page Groovy Doom. And to my right in the browser, I'm still getting used to this, Sam Panico, also a contributor to Drive-In Asylum and his own movie review website, BNS About Movies. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Bill. Happy Saturday.
And same to you as well.
I'm pretty excited. I've been looking forward to this all week.
So have I. You know,
Yeah.
The minute we decided to watch Scream Bloody Murder, as you could tell by that weird promo that we did earlier in the week. If you came to live with me in my big mansion where we have all kinds of servants, I'll clear out a big room of all the furniture and put art supplies in it and paints and an easel. You never had an easel before, did you?
Bill, I live with Becca, and we're in quarantine, so I couldn't live in your mansion.
But what's wrong with wanting to live in a big mansion and have nice things? I could get you anything you want.
Can you get me a face mask and some hand sanitizer?
Oh, sure. We've got plenty of face masks and sanitizer over here, and paint and an easel, and I'll cook you a steak.
A steak dinner?
You'd like that, wouldn't you? Okay, now I have to ask you, now that we're live, what do you think people thought of that promo?
My favorite one is someone said, I think I just watched two guys get ready to have sex. And I was like, we're quarantined right now.
Paul Workmeister said that.
Yeah.
And I'd like
funny.
to know how many times he's walked in on somebody having sex in a bathroom, because it sounded like it was multiple occasions.
Yeah, I never have in a bathroom.
Well, I've never walked in on anyone.
No, I did. However, I was at a socially distanced cookout 2 weeks ago, and two separate cars pulled over in a parking lot across the street from my friend's house, and they got into the same car. The motorcycle rider got into the car, and they disappeared for like 2 hours while we were all sitting there having the cookout.
Oh.
And then they were parked right next to my car, so I had to walk past it to get to my car to leave. And I was like,
that is the limit.
Yeah, exactly. So they're still hooking up in the time of COVID is still happening. So
there's going to be a lot of babies born about 9 months from now, don't you think?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. So plus I think there's a lot of these people were probably, I don't think they were making a baby, but I think they were sick of whoever they were with and out and about.
All right, our first comment from Roger Braden.
Hey, Roger.
And we are looking forward to bringing you tonight's insanity as well. In fact, insanity is the theme of tonight's movies, both of them.
I know. It's funny. I have my link ready to start, and just looking at the first picture from Scream Bloody Murder, I'm already excited. I think much like last week, I've seen the first movie, have not seen the second movie, so that's always exciting.
You haven't seen Don't Open the Door?
No, I've seen parts of it, and I've seen the trailer, and I know about it, but I'm excited to actually watch it. I've seen a lot of Brownrigg's other movies. I've seen Grave of the Vampire. Is that the other one?
No.
No. Which one is it? He has a vampire.
Keep My Grave Open is what you're thinking.
Keep My Grave Open. That's what I'm
Great.
thinking. And then let me see. I'm going to look up his other films. I know I've seen a few of them that are on.
Poor White Trash Part 2.
Yeah, that's the one.
AKA Scum of the Earth.
Yeah, I saw that because that ended up part of our Redneck Week on BNS About Movies. Ended up being that movie, and I loved every minute of it.
What's not to love about that? You know, Grindhouse Releasing, I think, is going to put it out on Blu-ray one of
Oh
these
wow.
days.
The version I had was very brown and had streaks through it, and the sound was popping. It was great.
As it should be.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I'm not going to discourage anybody from making a Blu-ray presentation, but I reserve the right to watch the movie in its original crappy state.
That's what I just watched the 7 release of the. We talked about Bill and I talked about it earlier this week. We usually text each other while we're watching movies, even when we're not doing this. And I watched the Wild Wild World of Jane Mansfield the other day, and they literally have no better print. It's the old Something Weird print that came out a long, long time ago, and there's literally just stripes in the screen for most of the movie, and the sound pops a whole bunch, and it's all over the place. And like I started watching it, and Becca came home halfway through it, and she's like, "Is this whole movie that she just talks about all the people that want to have sex with her like a baby doll?" I'm like, "Yeah, this movie's awesome."
What's not to like about that?
I mean, it's great. I mean, it's such a. And then there's a whole bunch of Mickey Haggerty, like scenes from his other movies, while she talks about how he could have been a Roman gladiator, and it like cuts to another movie he was in, and it's like there's a lot of padding. There's a lot of Jane Mansfield walking around with a dog throughout the film. It's wonderful. I'm so glad that I bought it at the last convention a week before lockdown. I bought it. That and Mondo Bellardo on the same Blu-ray set.
I don't mind watching a print that's beat up, but I do mind when things are missing from the print.
Yeah.
That's what I don't want. That's the bummer about watching an old battered print, is sometimes a lot of things were cut out. And when we went to see Terror House at the drive-in for Weekend of Terror, the scene where they show the heads in the freezer was completely missing, which is like really the only moment of gore in the movie. And it really just sort of like brings it home what's going on in that film. It's like, oh, there's decapitated heads in the freezer, but it was cut out. So it was probably because that was a PG rated print, I would imagine.
Yeah, last week on Last Drive-In, you know, he showed Deep Red. And it was funny because he talked about all the multiple cuts of it and how there are people that are obsessed with having every version of it.
Yeah.
And I got a text during it from a friend and said, "How many copies of Deep Red do you have?" And I was like, I'm like the worst of it. Like he talked about how horrible Argento fans are that are obsessed by having like, oh, there's another 11 minutes about gender politics. I'm like, yeah, I know, it's on the Arrow version. I have it.
Yeah. You know, I actually think the edited version of Deep Red is better.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's probably an unpopular opinion, but the US cut, it doesn't remove any of the gore. It just takes out other parts of the film, you know, that were deemed non-essential. And
it's always weird too whenever you've only seen the shorter cut to start, and that's the movie that you know, and it's the Hatchet Murders cut, I guess, the American cut of it. It played at the Hollywood, and I remember this is like right when I was first starting to get into Giallo, and I heard a whole bunch of people were heckling the movie during the movie, and I actually recognized one of the voices. It was someone I used to date, which is a really weird thing to happen. And someone stood up and said,
"Used to date."
Yeah, exactly. And I was with someone that I used to date that I don't date anymore. It wasn't Becca. This is years ago. This is like 10 years ago. And during the and then someone stood up during the movie and said, "This isn't Mystery Science Theater. This is Dario Argento." Like a total film nerd. Like, and I was like, "Yeah!" Like, you know, kick them out.
Stand up for your rights.
Yeah. Now, if it had been Manhattan Baby, I would have thrown him out of the theater myself for heckling.
You know, when you're watching Manhattan Baby, you got to do something.
We're doing. I see the RD Francis is here. We've been doing drive-in like things every week on the site, on our site, where you pick 4 movies. And Roger did one a couple weeks ago, and he did an awesome one.
I know. I promised to do one and never did it.
We kind of been doing this, so I understand. But I think I was trying to come up with a bunch of movies. So I have one, and we're kind of backlogged on them now, which is good. So if you want to do one, did one for July, and I was trying to think of the most Italian junk movies that I could. And Manhattan Baby was almost on the list, and I was like, oh. it's such a hard pick for me to pick 4 Italian movies that I love that aren't. And I was like, maybe I won't pick a Fulci one.
It looks like Sean Midas is with us.
Yep.
You mentioned R.D. Francis. Lana Revick. Hey, Lana. Nice to see you with us, too. Lana is also a contributor to Drive-In Asylum, and she has her own Facebook page and Twitter presence, Instagram, under the name Starts Today. And she shares a lot of great stuff, too, mostly centered in the Philadelphia area.
Mm-hmm.
If you're from Philly, you'd probably enjoy seeing a lot of those old ads from the old theaters.
It always makes me wistful in Drive-In Asylum whenever you get Spotlight 88 or Super 51 drive-in ad. We actually drove home to Elwood for Mother's Day last weekend, and my wife does not know where any of these drive-ins were, and I was like pointing it out to her on the way. I'm like, this is where Blue Sky was, which was right outside Zillionople.
Yeah.
Probably closed in like 78. And this is where Spotlight 88 was, and this is where Super 51 was. And it's just very wistful the whole way home, like remembering. There was another one in Cranberry where the gigantic sheets in that super church are. It's a mega church now where there used to be a drive-in, which is kind of sad.
I was never at the Spotlight 88. We go to the drive-in out that way. I lived closer to New Kensington. We went to the Gateway Drive-In.
Oh, I never went to that one.
There was one in New Kensington called the Gateway, and there was one in Natrona Heights called the Sunset View. And
my Pittsburgh Press always had that strip. I was playing in drive-ins, and all the way on the bottom was Dependable with whatever the X-rated movies were playing that week.
Yeah.
The Dependable, and I would always ask my dad, like, what's Maneater about? And then I would just get smacked.
I found a bunch of double features of porn when the Dependable went porn. And then there was a third movie underneath all of it, and it was always a PG-rated horror movie.
Yeah.
So that was fantastic, actually. Like
that was always like the last feature. Like after like
really?
I think they used to always do like 2 like 90-minute X-rated movies. So you'd get like Water Power and I'm trying to pick the worst 70s porn possible. You'd get 2 of those, and then all of a sudden it'd be like, and the computer wore tennis shoes.
Bradley Steele Harding's here. Hey, Bradley. And yes, Lana starts today. She always was, always will be.
Did you unmask her secret?
I did, yeah.
Like remember they used to have like my favorite movie critics were the ones that had gimmicks, like the Phantom of the movie, that like they didn't say who they were.
JC Greening, hello. Thank you for joining us. He says, completely agree with you, Bill. I'm not sure what you were talking about because I sort of lost track of the chat, but I think it was about seeing the movie in the battered state. Oh, speaking of that, and Brownrigg, Tony Brownrigg, SF Brownrigg's son, released, he did a sequel to Don't Look in the Basement called Don't Look in the Basement 2. And when that came out on Blu-ray, he presented the first ever high-definition transfer of Don't Look in the Basement, the original. And he presented it Grindhouse style, which was, they didn't clean up the image. It was all scratched and battered and everything, and I love it. Like, I watch that all the time because I just love the way it looks like, especially in HD. There's just something really cool about it.
Someone just said, Dave Verdun said that his driving is now an Ocean State job lot, but he did get to see he got to see One Dark Night, which I love, and Spring Fever there. There's another drive-in in West Mifflin that used to be, that is like behind where a Shop and Save is now. Now it's like an auto junkyard, like auto auction place, but you can drive through it still and see where the screens were. And for years they still kept the marquee. The marquee is still there, but now it's like a storage unit place. And for years it had the same billboard. It said, we're here for the little people, the great people, the people that keep the world going. God bless George Bush. And like it was up so long that sign is burned. So even though they've changed it, like God bless George Bush is still like burned into the sign. So I see it almost every day. And like I used to take a picture of it every time I went past it. And almost wreck.
Bless their heart.
Yeah.
Let's see who else is here. Matt Hankey's here. Hey, Matt, nice to see you. Matt has a feature coming up in the next issue of Driving Asylum, an interview with Dusty Nelson, the director of effects.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's nice to see you here. And Dave Rendon. Did we mention Dave? Somebody scrolled past me, and I don't think we mentioned them. If I forgot you, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And if you're here and just watching and not announcing you're, I mean, that's why the chat room's here. I'm going to say hi. As we connect on a somewhat nice Saturday before we get 5 days of rain. That's why I spent 12 hours in the garden today. Like Motel Hell, my garden.
It takes all kind of critters.
What's funny is my dad got Tubi, and we bought him a Roku TV to watch.
Yeah.
And my mom called me the other day, and she's like, "Your father found this movie, and it's about people getting grown in a garden, and a man with a pig head has a chainsaw, and he said that you told him about it." She's like, "This was the worst movie I've." And I was like, "What the hell's great, Mom?" And she did not appreciate it as much as you or I would.
All right, there's J.H. Rude. Nice to see you, Joe.
Hey.
And Joe's going to be joining us later. He's going to be on the third segment of the show tonight. After we watch Don't Open the Door, Joe will come on because he's actually been to the location, the really cool house where most of it was filmed, and the other locations in Jefferson, Texas. So make sure you come back after Don't Open the Door, and Joe will tell you some stories about going to the actual set of an SF Brown Rig movie, and that's not even the coolest thing that he did on that very weekend. I'll let him tell you all about it when he comes on. But so we're going to talk about Scream Bloody Murder. So, well, we both chose this movie, and I want you to tell me why you wanted to show this movie.
I think because you and I have talked about it so many times.
We could watch that movie from 1973 called Scream Bloody Murder. You know, the one about the guy with the hook for a hand?
Is that the one? It's called Gornography?
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Let's watch that.
We'll bring all our friends onto Facebook, and we'll talk about all the different titles, and Danny Terrio and Solid Gold and all the other weird things we talk about.
Oh, I love Danny Terrio. He used to live at my mansion too, but he's gone now.
Did you buy him an easel?
I bought him paints and art supplies and a dance studio, and I got him to host Solid Gold.
And Dance Fever?
Yeah, and Dance Fever.
So many texts from you about this movie. Yeah. I think that's a major reason of it. And I just really like just how strange it is. It's just in one of the review I wrote about it, it's like it's nearly an art film. It's like it's so filled with meanness. Everybody's murdered. There's really no reason why people are. I mean, it's just a nihilistic movie. And the first time I saw it, obviously, I feel like I shout out these guys so much I should be working for them, but it's on one of the many Mill Creek sets. It's on the Chilling Classics set, and I just love it. Like it's just. I say junk, but I say junk in such a nice way. You know, it's I even said it's an art film, but it's maybe too poorly shot to be an art film.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know if it's poorly shot or if that's just the way the print looks after all these years. Like we could get a Blu-ray that would reveal a little bit more artistry going on there. But to me, it seems like something that was shot like on the run.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of it is just hit and run cinema, it looks like anyway. And it's the kind of film where it's so unpredictable. Literally anything could happen and does.
Matthew is a crazy person in this movie too. I said that, you know, he was kind of like, he's kind of like a kind of goth kid in a way. Like, you know, like he's kind of an incel in a way too, I should say. You know what I mean? He's just kind of, in love with women, and it just never works out. So he has to like kill everybody.
He doesn't know how to talk to women. That's his whole problem.
Yeah.
Well, no. The real problem is that he's obsessed with his mother, and
yeah, well,
he has those feelings that you're not supposed to have about your mom. So yeah, I can understand why he's freaked out. But that's really just like the whole problem right there. Like in the very beginning, well, I won't spoil the movie for anybody who hasn't already seen it, but is it wrong to spoil a 30-year-old movie?
I always wonder that too, where people are like, "Hey, don't spoil this for people," and I'm like, "If you didn't see it by now."
Plus this one, like everybody's seen this movie, I would think.
Yeah, I would think. Even if they don't know, I mean, they may have seen it under the many alternate titles like Claw of Terror or Captive Female or Matthew. I'm sure there's even more titles. Let's go see a movie called Matthew. Claw of Terror. Yeah.
Now you're spoiling my ad galleries, my slideshow.
Speaking of like Oedipal films,
yeah,
I watched. This will make sense in a second. I watched Big Top Pee Wee. We're gonna have a whole week on the site of movies that Becca picked during quarantine, and the aunt from Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker is in Big Top Pee Wee.
Susan Tyrrell.
Yeah, she plays Chris Christopherson's not even midget. Yeah. She's like this tall wife, and she's like all the guys in the circus love her. And there's a scene where she's like, "You come see me soon, boys," and I'm like, she had sex with her nephew, or wanted to.
She wanted to. I don't think she ever did.
I haven't. You know what's funny? Speaking of movies that nobody knew what they looked like, and then you bought the Blu-ray, and you're like, "Wow, this looks really good." I did buy the Blu-ray of that, and it's like, wow, I can't believe how good this movie looks that I've only seen really junky quality copies of. So,
yeah.
Kind of like, why did I spend $50 on the Night Train to Terror Blu-ray? Who could say?
Why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? I mean, it's on YouTube. It's like, why would you spend hundreds of dollars on Spooky's Blu-rays from other countries? Who can say?
All right, so I'll do my slideshow now, and I'm not quite sure how this is going to work, so you'll have to bear with me. I am our own production room. Okay, hang on just a now you're the big one. That's the way I wanted it to go.
Yeah. Also, like, the lighting's really weird here, so I look like Lemmy, kind of with this like weird beard thing that's going on. That is not real. I don't know what's going on with that.
Okay, wait. I'm gonna try it again. This is a new feature that I have that for this week, and I should have done it last week, but I didn't think of it. I'm doing a Drive-In Asylum ad gallery pertaining. This is going to be all newspaper ads for our first feature tonight, Scream Bloody Murder, and there it is. This beautiful William Castle style exploitation ad campaign proclaiming that the movie is gornography. Now, so here's the gimmick that went with this film, which was you got your own Scream Bloody Murder mask. Because, of course, when you buy a ticket to a movie to go watch it, you want to put something over your eyes so you can't see the movie, right? Well, anyway, I think it was a brilliant idea. There's the theatrical one sheet that's a little more gruesome than the newspaper ads, showing some victims with their slashed throats. Now, as you mentioned before, this movie had another title, and that was The Captive Female. Now, I think one of the reasons that the movie was reissued with this title was because at exactly the same time, there was another movie called Scream Bloody Murder that was being produced in Tampa. Our movie tonight was made in Los Angeles, but the version in Tampa, the movie in Tampa called Scream Bloody Murder was directed by Robert Emery, who directed Ghetto Freaks. And he also did Weed, AKA The Florida Connection. And there was another one called Willie and Scratch. And those were his best known drive-in exploitation films. But one of them was this movie called Scream Bloody Murder. And when it came out, that was the title. It came out in November of 1972. And then right after that, 4 weeks later, this movie debuted in December of 1972 in El Paso. So both of those movies were out with the same title at the same time. And I think now it did run as Scream Bloody Murder for all of 1973, but then it came back as The Captive Female, which was probably just, that was pretty standard back in the day. Once the movie ran under one title, you could get some more mileage out of it just by renaming it and hoping that people didn't already recognize it from the trailer or something and they'd come see it again. Now there's Beyond the Living Dead, aka The Hanging Woman, the Spanish film. But look at the second flick, Claw of Terror. Yes, that is tonight's movie, Scream Bloody Murder, under yet another title. And they have to name drop Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Manson in the same ad, which I think is pretty brilliant. This played in Detroit in 1976. Just this one run for Scream Bloody Murder under the name Claw of Terror. Now, let's see. Oh, I included these. This is the other Scream Bloody Murder, the one that was made in Tampa by Robert Emery. That was also renamed. It had another run in theaters as My Brother Has Bad Dreams, and that's the title it went to VHS with. And it also played on TV. So that movie is more commonly known as My Brother Has Bad Dreams. But it's another personal fave. It's a real sickie. If you think tonight's movie is sick, the other Scream Bloody Murder is way worse to me. So that is the end of my Drive-In Asylum ad gallery for Scream Bloody Murder.
Well, I now I need to search down the movies by the guy who made the other Scream Bloody Murder, because they all sound like Dark Brother movies titles. My favorite Dark Brothers movie title is White Bun Busters, which is a great title.
Is there a Bun Busters 2 and 3?
No, I think they only made one, but they did make multiple versions of New Wave Hookers, which is you can't get the first one anymore because Tracy Lords was in it when she was
oh yeah
16. Yeah, that was I think that's the last movie, one of the last movies she did before she got busted. But Greg Dark, who was one of the Dark brothers, eventually directed a bunch of horror movies. He did the one with See No Evil with Kane in it, the WWE wrestler, and he directed several videos for Britney Spears and young female artists, and it was like a big cause celebrity when they're like, well, that's Gregory Dark and he was a porn director. I'm like, well, isn't teen pop pretty much the same thing? And so there you go. There's maybe more about the Dark Brothers than you'd want to know, or I'd want anyone to know.
Insightful commentary is the reason people come here and watch us say these things.
What's funny is the first time in my hometown in Elwood Cities, where I grew up, to rent adult movies, they had a book like up front at Primetime Video, and you had to go through this giant book of like, they literally put the covers into it, and you had to like thumb through the book and tell someone what you wanted. So I was like, everybody knows everybody in this 4,000 person town, so I'm never going to rent a movie. So when I went to Pitt, I lived outside Pitt my second year of art school, and I'm like, wow, there's like a legit video store here. So I'm like, I'm finally going to rent New Wave Hookers, and I was really excited about it. And so when I went into the back room, the guy behind the counter was my age. It was like a 25-year-old guy. So I'm like, cool, right? I didn't know that his grandmother ran the store whenever he had class. So when I walked out, I had the disc for the movie, you know, the little like paper disc they would have. And I handed it to her that said New Wave Hookers, and she proceeded to flip out on me about what a scumbag I was and how dare I do this. And I just ran from the store. I didn't go back for like 6 months.
I think that's a little misplaced. I mean, you're the scumbag for buying a product that she was selling.
It still wasn't as bad as remember Heads Together in Squirrel Hill?
Oh yeah, I went there all the time.
They had like the saloon doors to go back to the section, and if you opened them, they went boing, and they like made all that noise.
Every eye in the store turned because oh, someone's going in the dirty movie section.
Yeah, they should have just made like a sound effect. So whenever we still had Family Videos here, the last one closed. There was one on 51. They have an adult room, which is hilarious. It's like Family Video, but there's an adult room. And Becca has so many pictures of me like hiding, like sneaking my head out from it, or like going like this to it. So we used to take a lot of pictures. I have one of me in a surgical mask years before quarantine, of me coming out like a doctor out of the adult. And again, why the swinging cowboy doors in the back room? Yeah. It's kind of upsetting.
The swinging doors and Heads Together were a problem. If you're from the Pittsburgh area, then you've been to the Heads Together video store in the 80s. I mean, if you're old enough to have been in there. And they had these saloon doors that blocked off the room where the adult movies were. And even, I mean, because you could still see that you were standing in there, and the doors made noise and everyone looked at you. But also, I remember being paranoid because this was the 80s. It wasn't quite as you didn't readily admit to the fact that you were gay back in that era. You know, like you were still worried about people knowing sometimes, and you still to this day, you know, it can be a problem. And
Pittsburgh's a small town too. If you don't live
yeah,
here, Pittsburgh's a very small town.
but I was always paranoid when I went in there. I'm like, they're going to see my legs are on the right-hand side of the room, and that's the gay side. Well, you remember.
Oh,
your
what's
legs
funny is
are on the left side, Sam.
Heads Together was crazy when it was. This is before it moved down Murray a bit. When it was in its old section, where it had like the bookstore within it and like magazines, like it was crazy. And I remember always wanting to go to Heads Together as a kid in Elwood City because they always advertised, you know, that they, you know, now whenever you'd see like an album ad late at night on TV and be like available now at Heads Together, and be like someday.
I used to buy headgear there, and you went in there to buy music. And
that
then,
was the only place in town that had El Topo for rent before Incredibly Strange opened, and it was always out. And I had it reserved. And they're like, well, there's like an 18-month waiting list to get El Topo. And I'm like, well,
really?
put me on it. Yeah, I could never get it, and then I finally got it at Incredibly Strange. He had a bootleg of a Japanese Laserdisc that had been dubbed onto VHS, and that was the first time I saw it. And speaking of a movie that I loved, that was way like not a good copy of it.
Did you say there was an 18-month wait list or an 18?
Yeah, like they'd be,
wow.
You know, I say to me, whenever I'd ask someone, they'd be like, well, there's a lot of people in front of you. And I'm like, man, I think about that a lot though. Like I'd love to, like, you know, some people would like to go back in time and talk to important people. I'd like to go back in time and go to Heads Together and see what was in the left side of the adult. I'd like to see what was in their horror section, or what was in these rooms, and just see it again for myself. The closest I've gotten to it was getting to go to Scarecrow in Seattle, because they have 60,000 movies, and I'll tell you what, their one room, the Psychotronic room, is like, there's a section for Bigfoot. They even had they had a Sergio Martino section in the store, which was like my dream come true. And they had multiple copies of every one of his movies. I was in there for about 2 hours, and everybody else that was with me that day all went shopping other places, and they just left me there. And I just wandered the store. It was awesome.
So we got lots of people in the chat again. Bill Green from Driving Asylum's there. Hi, Bill. And Paul Workmeister. Thank you, sir, for being here. He has some comments about Heads Together. He says, my brother took me there and bought me the singles for Heart of Glass and Dreaming from Blondie. Your brother was awesome. And Carly Emmerich from synth pop band Candy Apple Blue. Hi, Carly. Thanks for dropping in. She says, I loved Heads Together, too. They had the coolest obscure VHS tapes and cult films. I remember they carried Smithereens. Yes, I remember watching Smithereens with Carly.
So before we start, I want to say, what's the most embarrassing 45 record that you own? I think that's a great question.
Oh, okay, you go
I can tell
first.
you, mine first is Shock, the Shock release. Remember that label of King Kong, which was one of those songs that was it used multiple other songs, almost like a mashup. And it was like the story of King Kong, and then they would cut to other songs within it that were done by other artists. It was like Kong, when he falls off the building, what are you going to do next? And it would play like I Will Survive.
So
He also did, the same artist did like a Jaws song like that too.
Oh, Dickie Goodman.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about, where they cut up all the songs and put them together? Yeah, that was Dickie Goodman.
Yeah.
I had Mr. Jaws. I had the full-length album. It was like it was an album full of shit like that. It was great.
Yeah, I think that I was gonna say Stars on 45, but I didn't want to people think that I was obsessed with Stars on 45. But
well, good, because Stars on 45 would probably be my most embarrassing 45 that I own, because I'm not easily embarrassed, and I'm not even really embarrassed about Stars on 45, to be honest. But Stars on 45 is really the only thing I can think of where legitimately I can understand when people say, why do you like that? I get it.
My favorite part is when they literally talk to pre-rap. Like rappers always talk about themselves within a song now, whereas most bands don't. But Stars on 45 would say their own name within the song, which is a weird thing. It's kind of like how most British new wave of British heavy metal bands like Iron Maiden have a song called Iron Maiden from the album Iron Maiden.
Bands that refer to themselves in their own songs. I can think of one big one. It's
Who's
one of
that?
my
Black
favorites.
Sabbath? Who?
No, who's a band that you immediately associate with me when you think of me or them?
My Life with the Throat Coat Cult.
Yes.
KMFDM does all the time too. Every KMFDM song does. Throat Coat Cult does a lot of times too. The most embarrassing album that I own is the Star Wars Christmas album that John Bon Jovi sang on when he was 17. That he was a janitor.
Oh,
in,
yeah.
In the studio. I also have the 12-inch Miko album of all his Star Wars and his other science fiction
I have that.
disco
Yeah.
covers. Dude, Miko is the shit, dude.
Miko is the shit. I have the Wizard of Oz on yellow vinyl.
Oh, really? The Miko remix?
No, it's like a whole album of music from the Wizard of Oz, and it's on yellow vinyl. It's by Miko.
Also, Roger Braden said Big Country. My wife, when I met her, she loved Big Country, and she didn't know who it was. And like that's a song we bonded on when we first started dating. They're kind of like the shitty U2. It's a very similar time.
I'm sure they'd love to get that comment.
Well, the guy's dead, so I don't,
Yeah. Living in a Box. They're another one. The name of the band is Living in a Box. The name of the song is Living in a Box, and it's from the album Living in a Box. So we should probably get into the movie so that we can at least have somewhat of a normal schedule tonight.
Yeah.
So I posted the links for tonight's first feature and the second one on Groovy Doom. If you go to the main page on Groovy Doom, the link will be there. And we're going to have a countdown that you can follow. It's all right if we don't all start watching the movie at the same time. We'll watch the movie. It'll come to an end, and then we'll give you a couple minutes, like to go to the bathroom if you want to or something, and come back and watch us. We'll talk some more about the movie after you've seen it, and hopefully some of the craziness we got up to earlier this week will make sense after you've seen the movie. But anything else you want to say before we watch Scream Bloody Murder, Sam?
No, I'm super excited to watch it. I've been holding off the urge to watch it all week, so I'm finally going to give in.
Right on. All right, so let's get into it.
Under 17 not admitted without parents or guardian.
Oh, Sally's parties are always the best. Welcome back. This is the Drive-In Asylum double feature with Bill Van Ryn and Sam Panico, the man to my right. And
I'm like Zombie. I'm a floating head.
remember when Zombie got hands? First he was just a head, and then one day a package came to the Playhouse and there were hands in it.
Oh, I love Zombie.
I know. I just want to go to the Pee-wee's Playhouse and live there the rest of my life.
And he also wrote Elvira too, John Paragon, the movie.
So we just got done watching Scream Bloody Murder, and it's really a life-altering experience when you watch it. Wouldn't you agree?
I definitely would. I think
I'm different now.
Yeah. And we talked near the end. I feel weird that I find a girl more attractive as a goth ghost with a hook for a hand than I do when she's just herself. But
does that mean she was a hooker?
I also said that like the end of this movie is a rape. An abortion analogy because everybody had their hooks on their hands.
Yeah. And then he slashed his body open. That was really a unwise decision, because then he rolled over on his stomach and crawled away, presumably scraping his organs on the floor.
That was always an upsetting thing to me in a movie when someone would get stabbed and fall on the knife, like forward and fall on it. I was always upset by that.
Yeah.
Kid.
That happens in Psycho too.
Yeah, which is actually really good.
And we're already getting some comments. Bill Green's back. Mecca Lecca Hi, Mecca Heiny Ho. To answer your question, Bill, yes. Mecca Lecca Hi, Mecca Heiny Ho.
Mecha
And
Johnny Ho.
Mark Dockham says, freaking amazing. First time watch.
Awesome.
I'm glad you liked it, Mark, because as I said, I'm not the same person I was before I watched Scream Bloody Murder.
I'm actually trying to find out if Fred Holbert really did have a hook for a hand.
He did not. No, you can. I mean, I don't know. I could see his hand inside, especially in that last scene, because he was wearing sort of a tight knit sweater, but you could see his fingers moving, trying to hold the fake hook in the sleeve. So yeah,
he did make another movie called Amputee with an Axe, though.
Really?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. I've never seen it.
Maybe I hallucinated the fingers then. Maybe he really was. I thought this was the only movie Fred Holbert was in.
Yeah, it's just weird that it was listed as a movie he did. It looks like one of those when you go to a convention and someone, when you go from table to table and suddenly you realize you're at a table where someone has all of their own movies and it looks like and you're like, oh, cool, I got to talk to this person now.
Yeah, those are the people you want to go hang out with, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they're like,
That's the fun stuff, like you can say, oh yeah, I went and I met Jamie Lee Curtis and we touched for a split second while we took a photo together and we didn't really have a conversation. Or you can say, I went to a convention and I met this guy who made 2 movies and there he was with them for sale on a table and like we talked for an hour because it was awesome.
There was when we went to Flashback the first year, there was a magic show. They were playing Halloween at midnight, and before Halloween, you had to sit and wait for this magic show to end. And Becca was probably one of the most upset I've ever seen her. And the magician did one of those tricks, the trick where you swallow razor blades and you pull them out one at a time. But he was like a goth magician, and he had
trick.
He had naked girls on stage with him, and he talked like this when he did magic. And he cut his finger on one of the razor blades, and he was literally just spraying blood, but legitimately had cut his finger. And he kept getting on a mic and being like, while he was doing the tricks, and like, does anyone have a Band-Aid? Does anyone have a Band-Aid? We talk about this guy all the time. I can't remember what his name was. He's at Flashback every year. He's like, he looks kind of like the old photos of Crowley when he got old. Like when he's like just sitting there with his bald head and everything. And it would have been really intimidating, but I saw his mom drop him off. I swear to God, I'm not making that up. His mom dropped him off and he had a big cardboard box of all his magic tricks. Hey, R.D. Francis just said Amputee with an Axe is actually another title for this movie, which is funny because he has a hook for a hand.
There's that scene at the beginning where he does have an axe. So
I guess he does. But is he an amputee yet at that point?
Yeah. Yeah, he was an amputee ever since he ran over his own hand with a tractor when he was a kid, right after he killed his father.
Do you think that killers in movies, I'm trying to think the right way to say this, but if these killers had just had sex with their moms, how many people's lives have been saved?
That's the thing that actually ends up killing him at the end, is he finally French kisses his mother and slashes his own stomach open instead of somebody else, which is what he should have done to begin with. I mean, why did he go up to kill all those people that were nice to him? Especially Lee Mitchell. She's the one who plays the hooker with a heart of gold in the movie. She's so nice to him in the movie. She's so accepting of his, his amputee. She's totally unaffected by it, and she tries to make him as at ease with it as she can. She's friendly to him. She's patient with him. She promises to be his friend, and he still takes her home and tries to kill her. He does.
You can't be a hooker with a heart of gold. If I've learned anything in this world,
it's not a good idea.
You gotta charge.
Mark Dockham gets the crazy talk thing, which is what I was doing in that video we posted earlier when I was trying to get Sam to come live at my mansion with all of my servants, and I'll buy him paint and an easel and art supplies.
I like that Bill couldn't find a hook, so he had a thing of.
I had this.
Yeah.
Well, it was just a shadow, so that was my hook for a hand.
What I love is like Becca was just sitting on the other side of the room, just listening to us act that out. And she's just like, shook her head and went back to playing Candy Crush. So Lana said that she was referencing the little boy that was selling chocolate at the door. And I agree with RD and Lana. It's like, I think dog deaths in movies are the cheapest. It's like a cheap, we call it in wrestling, but a cheap pop. It's like such a cheap way for, it's one of the few things I don't like about Michael Myers, where it's like, you know, I always used to joke on our site when Angelo the dog was still alive. Angelo would always, right on our old podcast, would always bitch about movies where the dog's been killed because, you know, he appreciated movies more like The Pack with Joe Don Baker.
Oh yeah, that's an awesome one.
Yeah,
AKA A Long Dark Night.
I like that they're like, it's like, you know, Cujo's coming out soon. We got to get ours out before it.
That's one of those movies where they tried it under one title and it didn't do all that great. So they're like, okay, now let's give it a title where you don't know what it's about, and we'll see if we can get people to come see it then. Get some more comments. Mark Dockham said the score is good. I really have to agree. The score is very effective. It sounds cheap, but you know, I think it's very effective. It's kind of like Night of the Living Dead-ish.
I really like the swirly look of the when the screen's all like at the end, whenever the scene in the church, like there's some really cool like Vaseline on the camera.
That's the crazy view. Like anytime you see that, that's him having one of his mental attacks where he grafts other people's faces onto his victims.
I always like the pre-CGI. What can we do? Just in camera, play with the lenses, crazy scenes.
That movie is there's so many movies that were coming out in the 70s, right around that same time, where it was all about insanity and mental illness. And, you know, people have been doing it for a long time in films, but it seems like that was a boom of films like that. Maybe.
Well, I think in early 70s too, there was more appreciation of therapy, where it was kind of like a hidden secret. Do you know what I mean? Before that, and there was like a big discussion as people moved from the late 60s to early 70s. There was a lot of that personal reflection, personal growth. I don't know. The early 70s are weird. It's such a weird time because like even the culture of it, like I know I always end up talking about music, but like the Pina Colada song is the weirdest song to me because it's like do you know what I mean? Like they both like ended up being with each other and everybody was cool with it, even though they both wanted to be with somebody else.
Yeah, like, well, you know, what could they say to each other? They were both doing it.
But it's so weird because it's like there's this weird time of this very, like, I know the 80s was the me generation, but the 70s was even more the me generation because there was no real consequences for anything. Do you know what I mean? Like it pre-AIDS, like, and
oh right, yeah.
And it's just like anything kind of went before the bill kind of came due, and but the Pina Colada song is the weirdest song to me. It's like, I don't know. But anyway, like there's a lot of movies, like we talked about, Belle and I were talking about Death Dream during the break, and that's another one too where it's just like, wow, there's a lot of, and I think a lot of post Vietnam there probably was a lot of people dealing with this, and then post
right.
Blue Sunshine's another great example of it too, because it's this post drug generation as people try to go legit.
We were talking about earlier, well, the second movie tonight also has the same theme of mental illness and, you know, people losing their grip. And that seems to be the horror of it all. It's like not even that you would be murdered, but that you could be the person who loses their grip. Like, you know, there's that scene at the beginning of Scream Bloody Murder, right after he kills the first couple. It just, I just start laughing every time I see it because he looks in the back seat and he sees the mother back there and her face is all like blurry and she's like, eh. And he's like, oh my God. And I'm like, he's acting like he's the victim, like he's the one that's being chased by something. I mean, meanwhile, he just slaughtered these people that were nice to him.
But so, I think the best villains always see themselves as the hero of the story. So that's kind of, he feels persecuted throughout, and that is his psychosis and how it is manifested throughout the movie.
You don't actually see that very often in films because, you know, there's like Halloween where it's scary because the killer has no motivation, and you really don't know, other than the fact that he did it before. You don't know why he's doing that, and but this guy, you do. Like, you're inside his head and you're seeing like these crazy hallucinations, and you're like, oh yeah, like now I understand. He has like these weird feelings about his mother, and it's just
Yeah.
fucked him up.
It's kind of like the end of a giallo throughout the entire movie. Like where you finally get to the
Yeah.
end and you figure out, oh, that's why, and then you get to see it from their point of view, and it's like, oh man, I took 2 hours and 45 minutes to get to this red herring filled ending. There's no, who it is, like right from the beginning.
Hey, Jeff Jordan, nice to see you. Eye roll. Well, I don't know what you're rolling your eyes about, but I'm sure I agree with you. And Craig Edwards says, oh, it's you. So he likes the Pina Colada song too.
Escape, the Pina Colada song.
That's what they call it these days.
Yeah, exactly.
My girlfriend and I, we escaped, if you know what I mean.
Did you go to the dunes in the Cape?
We walked there at midnight.
It's such a, like, who is having sex on the beach at midnight with all the sand? I'm a practical dude.
There'd be like big crabs trying to walk over you. If you've ever been out on the beach at night, there's crabs everywhere. So yeah, I don't think I'd do that.
The romantic notions of things are much better than the physical application of them. Perhaps that has something to do with our character's problem, Matthew's problem throughout this movie.
Matt Hankey says, I love Death Dream, and we're right there with you.
So also during this, I'm glad everybody, it was exciting seeing people saw this the first time. Bill and I discussed what's coming up next week, if you would like to reveal.
Yes. The first movie we're going to watch next weekend is going to be The Deadly Spawn. And I know there's a lot of people out there that do not need any encouragement to watch The Deadly Spawn. So we hope you'll come watch it with us next weekend at 8 p.m. And after The Deadly Spawn, we will watch
Mario Bava's Shock, which is his last movie that he directed. Yeah, we're not going to count Inferno, which he pretty much directed. But anyway, but Mario Bava's Shock, which is also known as, Bill?
Beyond the Door 2. In the ads, it's pretty clear that they mean Beyond the Door number 2.
Yeah.
Which is sort of a suspicious reference to make in an ad for your movie. But it's Beyond the Door 2, and it really has nothing at all to do with Beyond the Door, which is one of our favorite things here at Drive-In Asylum. Sequels that have no attachment to the movie that they're supposed to be a sequel to. Although there is one connection. You know what the connection is.
What is it?
There's one person that's in both movies.
Who's
it's
that?
the little boy. The little boy.
Yeah, yeah.
He's in both movies. He's the little boy in Beyond the Door and in Beyond the Door 2. So
what about Beyond the Door 3, A Mock Train?
I don't think there's any connection at all, even the most tenuous connection.
But I love that. I've never seen a movie where a train kills people.
So next week, we'll watch The Deadly Spawn and Shock, a.k.a. Beyond the Door 2. But we have another movie to watch tonight.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of S.F. Brownrigg. This is his 1974 movie called Don't Hang Up, which was retitled Don't Open the Door.
Didn't S.F. Brownrigg come up from the industrial film advertising kind of world too?
He made movies. He was a Texan filmmaker, and like Larry Buchanan and those guys that were making low budget independent movies in Texas. And he was in technical films, I believe, before he started. He worked with Larry Buchanan too. He was one of Larry Buchanan's guys, and
it's always interesting to me too, because like Romero did the same thing, where Romero shot like the Ancient Chinese Secret commercial. He shot a lot of the documentaries.
Wait a minute, what?
Yeah,
George Romero shot Ancient Chinese Secret.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was an advertising dude that did a ton of stuff, and so did the one of the groups he worked with, which was the animators. They did a lot of the animation for Creepshow. The company was called the Animators. They did a ton of local TV. They did like the Star. If you're not from Pittsburgh, you're not going to get it, but the Eaton Park Star and a few other animations. And they did the running down a dream video with Tom Petty. That was all Pittsburgh guys. When I went to Art Institute, a lot of them worked there. But yeah, and then also Romero also shot the ABC World of Sports, a lot of the docs for that, and he shot the what do you call it? The O.J. Simpson story for them. The one of the docs about him. Yeah, and Artie Francis says Calgon was Ancient Chinese Secret. Calgon's actually based in Wampum or Elport, PA, which is really close to my hometown of Elwood City. You can actually go to the Calgon factory and buy chemicals for your pool, which is really, I always thought was weird that you could get runoff chemicals at the Calgon plant. Latin Image his company did a ton of industrials and stuff. So I'm always neat seeing Herc Harvey too, and a guy did industrials and moved into doing, one amazing film. So anyways, it's interesting. Wherever there's money in film, that's what exploitation's all about, right?
There's something unique about it though, because these guys did come from this background. It gives their movies a certain look. And I don't want to sound insulting or anything, but there's sort of a vacant look to them. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just sort of like, sometimes it's very clinical. It's straightforward, like a documentary. And, they don't usually try to get really grandiose, at least not at the beginning when they make that transition.
It's funny because there's a lot of medium shots in these movies too, because in TV, like the framing for TV, you have to get everything into the shot. There's not a lot of pay-per-view and not pay-per-view, point of view shots and stuff. It's all pretty simple kind of shots because that's the way things were shot back then. It's always interesting to me to see how the eye of a camera changes over time. In the Spaghetti Nightmares book that Bill got me, there's a big part about Argento talking about working with Romero and how Romero was very non-experimental. He just wanted to film the story and get the story, versus the Argento world of it is like, how can I put a camera inside this wall, and how can I like the scene in Tenebrae where it's like the scene where the two girls get killed and the camera keeps shooting over the building. Yeah. Everybody that worked on that with him was like, please don't put that sequence in the movie because it totally like takes away from the rest of the movie. And he's like, that's in the movie. Like, and that's one of my favorite parts because but obviously it's like the masturbatory excess of the auteur versus like the people that worked in industrials were like, I got money to make a movie. Like I'm gonna make a movie. That's the way that I was looking. And it's not a bad thing.
There's good things to be said about both the styles,
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm excited to watch this.
Don't Open the Door though. It is very creatively shot. I didn't mean to suggest that there was that it was all like that. In fact, there are a lot of creative shots in Don't Open the Door. Well, you'll notice, first of all, like the main location of the film is this house in Jefferson, Texas, called the House of the Seasons. And in the movie, of course, it's somebody's private residence, but this is really sort of a public landmark. And when Joe joins us on the third segment, he's actually been to the House of the Seasons, and he's going to talk a little bit about that, about actually going to the location. But it's very colorful, and it has this tower at the top with all these windows, and each window is a different color. Mm-hmm. And there's a scene where, the heroine of the movie, she walks up there and she's walking around, and there's all these different colors on her face from the top. And there's another moment you should look for too, where she's one of the threads of the plot is that she's getting these obscene phone calls. And there's a scene where she's on the phone and she has it up to her ear, and then she sets the phone down, and it's like all blurry until she sets the phone down, and it's like right at the camera, and then it's in focus. When he brings it right up to the camera. Now, and an incredible tracking shot where she's walking up a giant staircase. I could go on and on about this movie because I really think it's probably better than Don't Look in the Basement in terms of how he shot it, even though it doesn't quite click the way Don't Look in the Basement does. It's still pretty great.
I'm always trying to notice camera moves, and one of the things I learned this week from the Eurocrime documentary is why Italians use that zoom, the super zoom that Italians use. Like, it's a full cheap trick. It's because you don't have to do another camera setup, because an American crew would do a completely different setup to get the close up, move everybody off the set, move the camera, move everything, versus the Italians are like, we'll just zoom in as fast as we can. And it saves money and saves time.
Yeah. Plus,
So,
it adds drama. So why don't I do the ad gallery?
sounds good.
Okay. So if you liked it in the first segment, be happy because it's back for the second segment, the Drive-In Asylum ad gallery. These are all newsprint ads for our second feature, Don't Hang Up, which debuted in May 1974 in Paris, Texas. And, you know, it did a pretty long, I think it ran for about 2 weeks, and that was it. But they made a big deal about it being the world premiere, and you know they tried to give it a little building up, but the movie really didn't take off because that was May of '74. This movie did not show up again until 1976. This ad from Great Bend, Kansas, and it was September '74 with Crypt of the Living Dead, aka Young Hannah, Queen of the Vampires. Now, eventually somebody purchased it and retitled it Don't Open the Door, and here it is at the Highway Drive-In in Limerick, PA in June 1976 with 2 other fantastic features. Okay, so this is the VHS release, and it looks like it has a one sheet on it. Like I've always wondered if there's a one sheet of this being titled Don't Open the Door because the title was changed. And it's so hard to find an actual record of a theatrical run. That ad that I just showed you, that's literally the only one I could find with it being Don't Open the Door. But here is what looks like a theatrical one sheet on this VHS release from Video Form. And I'm not sure which video release came first. So there was another one from Video Gems. And this is not a theatrical one sheet, but it was created for a video store. When this was released on Video Gems VHS. So that's our feature tonight. Of course, here it makes it look like a slasher film, and it's not a slasher film, but who's going to try and make you think that it's not a slasher film when they're all the rage?
Especially as VHS was kicking in.
Right. So
that makes me think of another Pee Wee Herman question for you before we continue about Paris, Texas. I always wondered whenever in Pee Wee's Big Adventure, when Simone tells Pee Wee she wants to go to Paris, does she really want to go to Paris, the city in France, or she just want to go to Paris, Texas because they're at the Alamo? Because she's getting on a bus to go there. And I've thought about that for years. That like
that
her
never
dream,
occurred to me till now.
Yeah, and her dream's just to go to a place. And I always love my favorite line in that whole movie. And she's like, "Do you ever have dreams, Pee Wee?" And he goes, "Yeah, there's one where all inside a giant donut and a snake comes." And she goes, "Not those kind of dreams, Pee Wee. Real dreams." That's a movie really full of just ridiculous references and stupidity. But that's always obsessed me of where they actually go.
So it looks like Gene Caruso joined us from the Drive-In Super Monsterama page. Hi, Gene. And yes, it is like CNN. We are the CNN of the virtual drive-in. Gene also does a virtual drive-in show on this Drive-In Super Monsterama page. You should go check it out. He and George Reese from DVD Drive-In go live like this and talk about movies.
Yeah.
Who else is there? Dawn Clements. Hi, Dawn. Nice to see you. And Dustin Fallon. Hello. I saw you in the earlier segment, and I don't think I gave you a shout out. To Dustin Fallon from Horror and Sons and Drive-In Asylum.
Hey, you should plug. You said last time you didn't plug the zine enough. You're working on a new issue, right?
I am, but right now I'm pulling up a video. So you talk about something.
Oh man, I'll plug my stuff. No, I'm just kidding.
Go ahead. Yeah, tell us about your site, BNS About Movies.
Yeah, so BNS About Movies this week. Today is the last day of Wrestling Week. We watched way too many Santo movies. I think I watched every Santo movie, and I can talk at them at length. I would recommend Fury of the Karate Fighters, the last movie Santo ever made, which was shot in Florida's Coral Castle, which is a place that was built with ley lines and magnetism and sorcery. And Santo fights karate people, zombies, and twins from outer space who have a space crystal and a jungle goddess. It is legitimately one of the most deranged movies I've seen, and that should really say something. Starting next week, R.D. Francis is on here as well. We are doing a week of made-for-TV movies. So if you like a TV movie, we had a lot of great recommendations, and Craig Edwards actually recommended a few that will get covered There's probably about 20 or 25 made for TV movies. Also, if you want to do a feature on our site, you're always welcome. Just reach out to me. You can look on the site. And we're doing like 4 drive-in movies every Friday that you can pick and talk about why that would be your dream drive-in lineup. And my wife is actually doing them. We talked the other night. Becca has told me her picks, and they're really good. So that's a teaser, but that'll be coming up pretty soon.
Right on. So I do have
for
a couple issues to show. This is number 19. This is our most recent issue, and our cover feature was actor Terry Tenbrook from the 1979 film Delirium. And these are current interviews that we have with these folks. You know, it's people that don't get talked about very often, and movies that don't get talked about very often. At least that's what we try for most of the time. Really, we can talk about anything we want, but really, one of the main reasons that the zine exists is because we love ads like this. A lot of people like them, and I'm learning that from curating the Groovy Doom page. So we like to see these back on paper instead of digital. It's kind of cool to look through them, just like you're looking through the newspaper when you were younger. And that used to be the way you learned about what was playing in the local theater. This is the last issue that we did too, featuring an interview with Richard Blackburn by Harry Guerro. Harry Guerro from Garage House Pictures. Sometimes I accidentally say Grindhouse Releasing, which is something totally different. Harry Guerro is from Garage House Pictures, and they just released a fantastic Blu-ray recently of the movie Bloodstalkers, aka The Night Daniel Died. Really gruesome exploitation.
And all the trailer trauma Blu-rays.
Yeah, yeah, they do all those. Those are fantastic. You can watch them for hours. So, and he did an interview with Richard Blackburn, who was the director of Lamora, A Child's Tale of the Supernatural, one of the greatest movies ever made, in my humble opinion. Don't you agree?
I love it, and I have the look from that town.
Right, the Astaroth look.
The Astaroth look with this.
Sam, that's not good.
No, I know. My dad was a gangster, and he was killed by vampires. What a weird movie. Like, I love that movie. That movie is even a real thing. And then what? The next issue has David Hess interview, correct?
No, the next issue has Dusty Nelson and John Harrison from the 1979 movie Effects, which was made and produced here in Pittsburgh. And that's going to be our cover feature for July, the July issue. And then in October, we have an original interview with David Hess from Last House on the Left and many, many other gruesome exploitation films. And he was a really sweet guy. He's unfortunately passed away now. But this is an interview with him from when our friend Ryan Clark used to have a podcast, and he interviewed David on the podcast. And he said there was some stuff that didn't make it on the air, and he provided us a transcript of this interview, a discussion with David Hess. So it's really interesting. I've already read it, of course. It's going to be in our October issue, David Hess. So I'm very excited about that.
And I haven't picked the movie for that I have to do. I've been doing all Mexican movies for some reason in Drive-In Asylum. Cemetery of Terror was the last one, which if people haven't seen it.
You know, I still haven't seen it, and I was really interested in it from reading that article, but it's not on YouTube, I don't think. Or
no, I will.
Streaming anywhere?
No, it's not streaming anywhere. And there was a box set of the Crypt of Terror Horror from South of the Border set.
Yeah,
it has like 6 of those movies, and it is $200 now. And my nightmare is because Don't Panic's on that as well, which is another one of my favorite Mexican horror movies. And my nightmare is that I'm going to buy it for $200. I'm not going to spend that much. My wife's awake. But that I get it, and then all of a sudden Severn puts it out for like $19.
Right.
I'm like, why did I do this to myself?
It's happened to all of us. Drew Lalena, nice to see you. He says, hi guys. Hi gents, this is Drew Lalena from Clearwater, Florida. Huge cult movie fan since the early 70s, which was the prime time for many of us. At least if you happen to be alive in that period, you would probably agree. Edwin Dela Cruz, nice to see you. I need to catch up on some drive-in asylum issues. Yes, you do. I'm joking, not really. Also,
John Ortiz said that Lamar has been on Comet TV all month. I love Comet because I can just turn it on in the middle of the day and be surprised, because now everything's so scheduled and regimented of when things come on, and I can watch things when I want. The fact that like just weirdness can come into my home at any time via the digital airwaves is still very nice. Yeah, Craig Edwards just said that the last thing is he bought the Night Stalker TV series for about $300 to own the whole series on VHS, and now the whole series is on DVD for $30. We've been there.
It kind of gets you right in the gut, doesn't it?
Who has the giant brick of Murder, She Wrote that we watched every episode of numerous times? Speaking of, if you're into exploitation stars of the 70s, I recommend watching Murder, She Wrote because tons of them show up in episodes. John Saxon's in a few, Linda Blair's in one. Like there's a lot of great people. It's a great watch it as part of a IMDb kind of thing, and so there's that, because all the TV movies that we watch for next week, hardly any of them are on DVD. So you can spend a lot of money getting those, and then eventually they'll come out too, and you've spent a lot on bootlegs.
I was just watching Heart to Heart yesterday, and because I'm obsessed with Heart to Heart now again, and I saw Lois Childs from Creepshow 2.
Yeah,
she was on. Like, you got to pay for that, Mrs. Lansing. I was like, wow, there she is.
Mill Creek just put out the Heart to Heart TV movies, like the reunion TV movies. There's 8 of them. They put out the box set, and then the second one.
Sam, I think I lost you.
Lance Guest is in the second one.
Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Lance Guest is it. Yeah, Lance Guest plays one of Jonathan Hart's friends' sons that runs a company, a computer company, and he has really long hair and a beard, and he looks nothing like he did in Last Starfighter or Halloween 2.
He doesn't look like Jimmy.
So maybe I'm putting together a quarantine care package of DVDs for Bill. So the Heart to Heart movie collection will probably be part of those. The last TV movie is awesome because you finally meet the person that Mrs. H was going to marry before Jonathan Hart, and he is a complete villain, and it is awesome. It is what's his name? Barbara Streisand's husband.
James Brolin.
Yeah, James Brolin, and he's super nice to her at first, and then gradually throughout the episode, you find out that he was a maniac. And it's really, really good.
Why does this stuff always happen to Jennifer? You know, I just watched the one that was yesterday. She went to cover a fashion show, and she ended up being one of the models in the fashion show. Because I'm like, okay, because that happens in real life, you know.
Well, one of these episodes, she gets put in a play that they're putting the money up for, and I'm sure that's happened on the show before. And another episode, she goes back to her hometown to her high school reunion. And I'm sure that happened before too. I mean, the plots of I always want all of the characters of these shows, like Murder, She Wrote and Heart to Heart, to all come together, and they're all at the same convention, and that numerous people get killed, because when they're there, people get killed. Like, they are serial killers.
Right? Yeah, it's not the other people doing it; it's them.
That's my dream idea for a show. Yeah. All right.
I think we should get to the movie. It's going to be Don't Open the Door. The links are posted on the Groovy Doom page on Facebook. And we'll do a countdown to the beginning right now. We're going to come back after the movie's over, so make sure you come back. Joe Rude's going to be on, and he's going to tell us all about the House of the Seasons from Jefferson, Texas, which is where this movie takes place, the majority of it. So you ready to roll it? All right.
Yeah.
Under 17 not admitted without parents or guardian.
All right, welcome back. After our break and in between movies, we just finished watching Don't Open the Door. And not to be confused with Don't Open the Window.
Just don't.
Right. Or, don't go in the basement. There's all sorts of don't go in the attic. Don't go in the house. There's lots of don'ts. But our second moment of insanity for the evening, and what did you think of that one, Sam? Because it was the
I
first
really
time.
liked it. I liked it. We were talking during the movie. I'm a big fan of any movie where prank phone calls happen. Obviously, Black Christmas being probably the best. I loved it, and creepy dolls and prank phone calls and people slowly losing their mind all in one movie. We've had two different people. One person that started losing their mind, and then and then this one by the end they lost their mind. So a good bookend of mind losing movies.
Yeah, it was really so tragic too, because the thing that really strikes me the most about that film is Susan Bracken's character. I mean, the minute you see her, she's assertive, she's strong-headed, she like says exactly what she wants, and she cuts through all the bullshit of the things that these people are telling her. And um, you don't normally see a woman act like that in a horror movie. It's very
No,
atypical.
well, Margot Kidder in Black Christmas too. They both deal with the pain of prank phone calls and the results of it. This one's a very psychological horror. The horror is much more psychological and just abusive in this. So it's a strange movie. I think that's what I like about all Brown Riggs movies is they're very in these weird self-contained universes of a house or a place, and just the strangeness that being trapped in these places drives you nuts. So probably this was another really good quarantine movie, Bill. We didn't even consider it, but
We considered it on some level, obviously, because we weren't conscious of it apparently. But
and also Shock is next week, and Shock would also be a good quarantine movie too, or
really,
will be. Well, because the house itself goes crazy. Unfortunately, we talked about as we were watching the movie, caller ID has kind of ruined a lot of the horror of these movies. So I can't call you up on the phone as this person and say Bill, and you'll be like, "Oh, it's you."
you could, but I'll pretend I don't know it's you.
Yeah, exactly.
If that's your game, I'm willing.
Yeah, but back in the day, like we were talking during the movie, people obviously missed out on what we talked about, so I'll tell them. But we were talking about the many prank phone calls to our friends that we did when we were younger. If you were bored, that's what you did. Like we called into my brother and I used to call into KDKA almost every night to try to get onto talk shows.
My attacks were personal. We didn't call the we didn't call the radio station, and we didn't call the newspaper or anything. But we would just look in the phone book, would think of people, and be like, let's call them, and we'd call their house and say some kind of crazy shit, and
We would call his characters from the Eric Bedrosian movie Talk Radio a lot.
mm,
But now I would probably call as the Count from Martin, which would be nobody would get the reference to anymore. But that's my favorite part of Martin when he calls into the all night. Obviously, it's KDKA. They don't say it.
so
Yeah.
now we have a very special guest joining us from El Paso, Texas. This is oh, there I am with that direction again. Joseph Rude. I'm trying to do this and it's not working out. Um, Joe is the director who has made several films, including Honky Thunder, The Abode of Mad Tales, The Bitter End, and he also made a documentary film about SF Brownrigg, where he actually went to the location for Don't Open the Door. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you, Joe.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. So yeah, you want me to just jump right in about Jefferson, Texas, and the whole bit?
Well, the really amazing thing, and this is actually how I met you, because I found the video on YouTube, and I think I was just searching SF Brownrigg, and there it was. So I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Joe's movie Don't, it documents a road trip that he made where he visited the actual locations for "Don't look in the basement" and "Don't open the door." So, and it's pretty amazing because I can't think of anyone else in the world that would like that more than me. And then there was someone that did it. What made you want to do that, Joe?
Well, I appreciate that. And you know what, Bill, I'll never forget when you comment. You were the first person to comment on "Don't" on YouTube. And I remember I put it out there, and a few months had gone by, and I'm like, I know there's other Brown Rig fans out there. I know somebody's going to see this and appreciate what I was trying to do with it. And then I get this comment from this guy, and I'm like, yes, thank you. Somebody gets it, because a lot of people didn't. I actually spent my vacation shooting that movie, and I was telling my coworkers, yeah, I'm going out to East Texas to film, the filming locations for these movies, and nobody got it. They were like, you're going where to do what, you know? But I was like, I know my people are out there. Yeah, I live in El Paso, Texas, which is hell and gone from where Brown Rig shot all his stuff in East Texas. But it was almost exactly 5 years ago. I very patiently but persistently pestered the people that own the building where Steven Sanitarium is from "Don't Look in the Basement," and got them to let me stay there for a couple of days. And actually, the House of the Seasons from the movie we just saw, "Don't Open the Door," is a bed and breakfast, so anybody can stay there. It's not cheap though, and they look at you weird when you book a room for one, because it's kind of like a known honeymoon place, and that kind of thing. So they kind of look at you weird when you're like, it's just you. And then you get there and you tell them that you're working on this little film and stuff. I remember the lady that ran the House of the Seasons. I was telling her about this documentary I was putting together, and she goes, "Oh, was that the movie where the dummy falls down from up in the ceiling?" And I said, "Yeah, that's the one." So it was a lot of fun. What I did is, when I got to Jefferson, which is probably one of the prettiest places in all of Texas. The whole town is just beautiful. I just went from place to place, and I stayed at the House of the Seasons for one night, and they were nice enough to let me go through and just film, and fortunately both of those movies, the two "Don't" movies, were in public domain, so I didn't really have to worry about stepping on anybody's toes or anything like that to put my little thing together. But yeah, I just went through and shot a bunch of stuff, and spent some time at the museum and shot a bunch of stuff there. And I did actually get to go into the Jay Gould rail car, which is in the opening scene where you see him in the rail car. Unfortunately, that was a guided tour, so there was all kinds of chit chat, and it was kind of dark in there, so I didn't actually put any of that in there. But it was a lot of fun to do a tribute film to a couple of Brownie Brown Rig movies that I've always loved.
Also, the Abode of Mad Tales is on YouTube now, and I did not tell Becca that Bill is featured in it. And I said, I'll check out this movie. It's on YouTube one day, and we were sitting watching. And she's like, "Is that Bill?" And I was like, "Yeah." So she was very, very excited. It's pretty great that we watched the whole thing. We loved it.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. It was a cheesy horror movie made by a cheesy horror movie fan for cheesy horror movie fans, and it is what it is. And it's entertaining. That's all I ever really care about. Is just I hope that somebody watches something that I make and gets a kick out of it and has fun for a little while. So that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, that's what I really liked about it. It moved really quickly, and it was fun, and it held together a lot better. There's so many portmanteaus that get made now to direct to streaming and stuff, and the stories never hold together. And you know what I mean? It's just things happen versus like these were actually nice small stories. So I really enjoyed that.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, we wanted to do an anthology because we had, when I say we, I'm talking about me and my buddy Alex, who's my film partner, Alex Lopez. and he also writes and records all of our musical scores and everything. But we had a bunch of different ideas for horror stories, but we were trying to figure out, well, which one should we do, and we realized that none of them were really long enough to be feature length, and we decided, well, let's just do an anthology, and that was for, and of course I wanted Bill to be the storyteller, and he knocked it out of the park, so that was pretty cool.
The Raconteur.
Yeah, the Raconteur, Bill the
Raconteur, yeah. Yeah, he's
I
great.
didn't know how to say it either. I had to learn how to say it for the movie.
I grew up in Green Acres, so I never pronounce anything correctly.
Yeah. Well, then that was Alex's deal, because he wanted it to be something fancy. I said, just call him the storyteller. He's like, no, it has to be something, it has to be something fancy, So I was like, okay. I had to look the word up too when he first threw it at me. So.
Well, that's the only movie that I've ever seen where one of the villains was dispatched with a weed whacker.
And you know what? I take a lot of pride in that. I've always thought that somebody in a horror movie needs to be taken out with a weed whacker, and that's why I did that. And I, I'm pretty happy with it. It was nice and sticky and slimy and gory, and it was pretty cool. So yeah, weed whacker disembowelment.
And then he turned into a pile of paint with fizzy tablets in it or something.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, something like that.
That's what it looked like. He just sort of like melted into all this stuff.
And Leaf just asked. It's called The Abode of Mad Tales, is what we're talking about. JH's movie.
Yeah, it's an anthology, Leif, that we did where Bill is the storyteller. He's like the crypt keeper, the raconteur, and yeah, that's on YouTube as well. That's an anthology horror that we did a couple of years ago. We premiered it at the Alamo Drafthouse here in El Paso, so that was pretty cool to see Bill up there on the big screen.
Have you ever seen Leif Yonkers' movie, Joe?
I don't think so. No. Wait, is it Darkness?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen Darkness. Hey, Leif, did you do Darkness? Was it shot somewhere in Kansas? I'll just wait for a reply. But I saw Darkness. If it's the one I'm thinking of, I saw it back in like the mid '90s, and it was a really good, gory ass vampire flick.
That's it.
With a good soundtrack too. It had some good metal tunes on it and stuff.
It's one of those movies that shows you just how much blood there is inside the human body.
Yeah, I found out about it because I read about it in Film Threat magazine, and a buddy of mine, this was pre Amazon and pre eBay and all that stuff, and he ordered it on I think he clipped it out of a magazine or something and ordered a VHS copy of it. So that and Necromantic, we had a double feature that night. He ordered Necromantic and Darkness. So it was a very bloody, disturbing evening. Yeah, Wichita. Okay, yeah, I thought it was. I remembered it was somewhere in Kansas that was done. It was a good movie, Leif. I love that one. I got to add it to my DVD collection. I haven't done that yet, but that was a good one. It's nice to meet you here.
John Kashner says the scariest thing about Don't Open the Door is Judge's wisp of a comb over. That's a bitter, cutting comment, John, and it's brilliant.
It was a little terrifying.
Yeah, there's everybody in this movie is very unique looking. I always think about people from like the 70s. There's nobody that looks like certain people today. Do you know what I mean? When you look at a movie, you're like, well, that's you can definitely tell the time it was shot. This is one of those movies. Everybody has a very iconoclastic look, down to that bonnet hat that she wears when we first meet her.
That's one of the things that, when the movie, it had a theatrical release in 1979. I don't know where the hell it played, but if you look at it, there's a copyright date on the trailer that says copyright 1979. So somebody had that out in theaters in 79. And could you imagine going into that movie think of all the other movies that we were already used to in 1979, and then you're going to go to the movies and see that, which really looked like it was from another era.
Well, I don't know if you remember, Bill, but in Brett McCormick's book Texas Schlock, he talks in the chapter on Brownrigg. He talks about how Brownie got kind of railroaded by the studio. There were some people behind the scenes, the executive types that were never really even planning on releasing Don't Open the Door. It was like a tax write-off kind of a thing, you know. And so Brownie got pretty pissed when he found out that I mean, I still think it's his most well-made film. Basement's still my favorite, but this one is in some ways almost Hitchcocky in its suspense, you know. And there were people that were writing the checks that were like, yeah, nobody's gonna see this, you know. I'm just glad that it got out there finally, you know.
We were talking about it during the movie too. There's a lot. Before we talked about the industrial filmmakers, how things are very locked off, but there's a lot of shots in here, especially when she's hanging up the phone in the one scene where her hand comes right at the camera and the spiral of the phone is like leading back. There's some that, and there's some dissolves near the end as she starts to go. The more insane she gets near the end, the film actually picks up and really does some interesting things.
Yeah.
I was trying to set that up in the previous segment when we were live, but my vodka went to my head and I couldn't get the words out.
It happens to the best of us, Bill.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because like especially in Texas Schlock, like so many of these movies may have been intended just for regional drive-ins, but now we've kind of seen, you know, obviously we grew up way away from Texas and we know about it now, and you know things aired either late at night here or we've picked them up obviously on Milk Creek sets or however we find movies, and it's pretty amazing. Bill and I were talking earlier too. It's like when we first started buying movies and getting into these things, you would have to buy almost everything. Like how you said you bought Leif's movie. Like, you know, you bought a lot of things sight unseen and you had to just like hunt these things down. And now I think that's the thing that, not that I want to be a gatekeeper of movies, but a lot of younger folks that are just getting into these movies don't realize like it was a big effort to find movies and hunt them down and get them, and
like it gave you some build up about finally seeing the movie. Like you had to look for it and then maybe you had to order it. You couldn't just go rent it somewhere. Like you had to really seek it out. So that gave it a little bit of like cred already. Like before you even saw the movie, you were excited about it.
Yeah. And in some cases, a lot of times you could rent stuff. I know where I grew up in Albuquerque, in my neighborhood, there was a couple of different mom and pop video stores that had stuff that like say Blockbuster wouldn't carry. And that's actually where I found Don't Open the Door for you know that box that you showed, Bill, in the slideshow where they're holding the machete like a knife, and trying to make it look like a slasher, and that was where, and it was that big oversized box, a big VHS box, and that was where I first saw Don't Open the Door. And I had actually rented Don't Look in the Basement from another video store, and I remember I was probably 15 at the time, and I was already really interested in filmmaking, and I was always looking to see who directed the movie and who wrote it and everything. And that name, S.F. Brownrigg, really just pops at you. You know, it's not a name. It's not Tom Smith, you know, or something that you're just gonna forget. You know, like that. You're like, wow, there's a name for you. And I had seen Don't Look in the Basement maybe a few weeks before that, and I rented Don't Open the Door, not knowing that there was any connection. And I started watching it, and there's those creepy dolls, and I see that there's that name again. I'm like, that's the same guy, you know. And that was what kind of sparked my my interest in. And then
someone in the last chat, like on our last segment, somebody in the chat said that they thought S.F. Brownrigg's name was a pseudonym.
Yeah,
his name was Gerald Fergus Brownrigg, but
right,
you know, his sons are named Brownrigg. And
it's really interesting to me too. Of Mark on the chat was talking about, he thinks about that as a post-internet guy. Pre-internet, there were movies that almost became legendary, like amongst renters in my town and kids that I grew up with that were horror movie fans. And I always think about Guillermo del Toro talks about the first time he saw Zombie was in college, and he came home to a small town and he told everybody about it, and they're like, "There's no way that that movie's real. Like that movie sounds like a dream you had, and it's not a real movie." And I think the movie that was like our torture test was Bloodsucking Freaks, which I probably shouldn't have seen at 11 years old. It's a really intense movie, you know what I mean? But that was like the when you would tell people about it, there was, and oh, it would be like, oh, I saw this movie on Cinemax at 3 a.m. and you would try to explain it to people, and there was no way pre-internet outside of reading Fangoria or really hunting down books and getting like really starting to meet other people that you could find out what exactly that movie was. Versus now, you can just IMDb exists and or I just usually text Bill and ask, what is that movie? I'm trying to remember what it is.
And I usually go to IMDb, look it up.
Yeah. But I think that's really interesting, especially like Joe was saying, like when you go into a video store and you were confronted by those boxes. In the horror section, I always had this moment of not fear, but it was just like, oh, is this movie going to be like the cover, the big box of Zombie was really intense to me. The We Are Going to Eat You box. It was like Faces of Death and Zombie were right next to each other in those big boxes, and I was like, they really seemed like on the same level as being in your face. Versus like at least Bloodsucking Freaks has the, I guess, humor element that kind of diffuses some of it.
But don't you remember when Zombie was in theaters? I mean, were you aware of it when it was in theaters?
I was, because I would have been around 8 or 9 because I was born in '72. But,
I had already had.
I was definitely aware of like Dawn and the TV commercial for Dawn of the Dead was so frightening. Like I would hide.
Oh yeah, that was scary.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely remember Day because Day was shot obviously in Wampum, which is about 4 minutes from my parents' house. So
Yeah.
all the seniors would skip school and go have Savini make them up and come back to class with their arms all done for that scene where the arms come through the wall and menace
Laurie
Laurie Cardell. That all was like that's right down the street from our house. So Day was a big deal, obviously, and Dawn obviously is the either Zombie or Dawn is the zombie movie.
When I was a kid, my mom took me to the drive-in to see Silent Scream, and when we went to when we pulled into the drive-in, they gave us a flyer for the movie that was playing next week, and it was Zombie. And
Oh, wow.
it was like this red. It was a red ink 8.5 by 11 flyer with that rotting face on the front of it, and that's all. It looked like really sketchy. Like it didn't look like a real movie poster. It just looked like a picture of a rotting corpse, and it was amazing. I was like, "Wow, I really want to go see this." And she was like, "Oh no, oh no, we're not going to see that."
When it played at the one of the drive-in things a couple years ago, right after the scene with the door, someone opened up their door and threw up of their car, and I was like, well, I was eating dumplings during it. I literally, and it was like, I'm ready for this movie. But when you're young, I would read Fangoria kind of like this when I first started reading it. I was always kind of freaked out by it, and but you gradually have to. Then obviously, it's like a new high each time. Like this after like Brain Dead and or Dead Alive, I should say. In these movies, like once you start getting into these splatterpunky kind of movies, it's like especially after Fulci ones, there's really no going back, I guess.
It's got my brain going, and I was thinking about how when I went into these video stores, what I did is I did almost the same thing I did when I was looking at CDs for new bands and bands that were coming out like in the late '80s and early '90s metal bands. Is I cover shopped. I would spend money on a movie the same way I would an album. It's like I have to have this. Look at the cover. Look at the logo.
Yeah.
This has to be good. And a lot of times it was, and sometimes maybe not so much, but. Yeah, in the video store, there was, and even in the 70s are kind of known for the whole bait and switch thing. Let's do the AKA alternate title. Let's get them in 2 or 3 times to see the same movie and everything. But I remember in the late '80s, early '90s, a lot of like '70s drive-in movies being put out on VHS with really shiny, fancy new covers that made them look like they were made last week. I remember renting a copy of Three on a Meat Hook, that William Girdler movie, and the cover had like these bikini girls that looked like they came out of an Andy Sedaris movie. They had like the teased up hair and everything.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and then you pop the movie in, and that graininess starts, and you hear that music, and you're like, this doesn't look very current to me. And at first, you want to get pissed off, but then you're like, now let's see where this is going. Let's just see where this is going. Yeah.
It's funny because I still think of that era in my life where I think both metal and horror movies kind of went hand in hand, obviously. And I know there's crossovers between it, but like it was such a big deal to me. Like that, I think it was Bill and I talked about this briefly today, but it was like I resist any efforts to make horror movies or metal acceptable by people. I hate when people are like, I think that's why I hate, that's a strong word, but I dislike modern horror so much. These like movies that are like elevated horror, because like where people say, well, it's not a horror movie. It's like a dramatic movie that has horror elements. It's like, I like movies that wholeheartedly embrace being junk and being violent junk that nobody should ever brag about or want to tell people about. These dirty, like Zombie is a perfect version of that. Three on a Meat Hook is too. It's just like they're transgressive films that you feel better because you can share them with people, and other people are disgusted by them.
Yeah, and they own their sleaze.
Yeah.
It reminds me of what the movie Showgirls taught us about this kind of thing. You're dancing at the cheetah, and that's one thing. You're showing tits and ass. And then you're dancing in Goddess, and they act like they want something different, but you still show them tits and ass. That's the difference between elevated horror and like the drive-in shit that we're talking about.
The difference is I don't remember any horror, like the plot points of many horror movies I saw that were released post anything the last couple of years. And if you think about it, the slashers that were derided in the 80s, like Hell Night isn't really considered a great slasher back then. But today, when you watch it up against these other movies, it's actually pretty good. Like if Hell Night came out in 2020, people would be like, holy shit, this movie was awesome.
Yeah, because I remember when these movies came out, and I think a lot of people today would be shocked at how bad these movies were talked about. I mean, even people who went to horror movies didn't like some of this stuff when it was new.
I remember when The Prowler came out, people talked about how bad it was, and that's one of my favorite slashers. And not just because of the Savini effects, but it's great. And people are like, oh, it's just such a bad movie, and it's so derivative of the other ones. Yeah, they're all the same movie, But I miss those kind of movies now. There isn't anything. Obviously, no movies are coming out right now. But like, if you look at the movies that came out 81, 82, 83, you had almost a different horror movie every week in theaters. And then, as Joe said, a lot of these old movies were coming out on VHS. You had a lot to choose from.
We got some great comments that we should talk about. By the way, Leaf Yonker says that he's working on a Blu-ray for Darkness with Arrow. So that's exciting news, because I would really love to see a Blu-ray release of that. And he said that he made a zombie Halloween costume when he was 11 or 12 by gluing spaghetti onto a plastic mask with wax. The mark of a genius. And I think that would have been fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm still amazed that they made the Incredible Melting Man Halloween costume set that I talked about in the one issue of Driving Asylum.
How did that happen? How did somebody think that was a good idea?
Well, I found it like 5 years after the movie was even out as a kid. And I was like, do you know what I mean? Like, I had no point of reference for what the Incredible Melting Man was.
It was an R-rated horror movie, and they made a child's toy based on it.
Well, they made an alien figure too, Bill.
I had that.
Yeah.
It's like pictures of that, Sam?
Yeah.
The Halloween costume?
Yeah. There was a whole kit to make yourself up like that, which is...
Oh, my gosh.
nobody gave a shit about kids until the mid '80s. Like kids could do whatever they wanted until about '85.
Get on your bike and just be back after dark or before dark, you know.
Bill Green says, I like the old Wizard video boxes. Yeah, they were fantastic. In fact, I have one right here. It's my only Wizard video box, but I do have
Oh,
a Virgin Among the Living Dead.
that's a
And
great
it's an
box.
original. It's not one of the reissues that they put out that they said they found in a warehouse.
That's awesome.
I love that movie too, even though people talk about how bad it is. I actually.
Oh, yeah, that is great.
Do you like it too?
That was a Jess Franco movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was a good one. I haven't seen it in a long time, but yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, that zombie stuff that they stuck in there was stupid. It didn't have anything to do with the movie. But if you cut that out and just watch the original version of the movie, it's actually pretty good.
I'm always like, sometimes I love Jess Franco, and sometimes, but like Bloody Moon, I really like a lot. Speaking of slashers,
That was a good one too. Yeah.
yeah. I'll show you my craziest. I have one Well, I have one box. I'll show you. I think I showed this to Bill. I put it on the site before, but this is my beta box that I found in a thrift store. I don't know if I showed this before or not. It's my House on the Edge of the Park beta.
I remember
Fisher's
you posted
Big Wheel,
that.
which is like Kmart. And look, it's a starring David Hess's Loose Again. Who going to a Kmart in a small town in Elwood City, which is where this is from, would care about this Italian movie? It's astounding. And I can't play it or anything. I have the Mill Creek one of it, but please rewind.
Oh, nice. That's why you gotta always keep
And I
an
love
eye on
there's
those
no
bargain
picture
bins.
of it. No picture of it, and it's literally just like a block of text on the back. It's
Yeah.
a Vestron one, so. But I got it for $0.25.
Oh man. You know
Like,
what I
why
miss?
was it just? It was just sitting on the shelf. Like, I only got this like about 6 months ago, just sitting on a shelf in a store, and I don't know how it happened, but I feel like it was like a magic moment that I was destined to own this junky
You were in
movie.
you were in the right place at the right time. And you know what's funny?
Yes.
You mentioned Vestron Video. I had a whole bunch of Vestron Video releases on VHS back in the day, and I've gotten a lot of them on DVD now, like Slaughter High and the Supernaturals and a bunch of others. And when I go to watch them, it doesn't have that little Vestron intro that it used to have, the little diddly diddly diddly, thing that it did, and it's
Yeah.
like part of the movie's missing, you know.
Oh yeah.
Like that little intro, like I'm waiting for that little Vestron intro and it's not there, and I'm like, oh man, it's just something's not right.
I always joke, like, whenever you see a logo like that, the Orion logo always means a lot to me because it's from the beginning of RoboCop, where the stars kind of go around, like that look. Like, I always get so excited when I see that on a movie.
I'm an
'Cause I'm
Avco
always-
embassy man myself.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that
Avco
was a great intro. Yeah, like on the Fog and all those other ones. Yeah.
The Howling. Wasn't the
Yeah.
Howling Avco embassy?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anytime I
and,
see, I'm like that about the AIP logo coming up on movies too. I'm like, I'm about to watch
Yeah.
some good junk.
Naturally, yeah. I think that's the first time I became aware of a branding like that when I was a kid, because they showed all those movies on TV like Blackula and The Thing with Two Heads, and they all had that thing before, and I was like, wow, that means it's going to be a good movie.
Yeah. I'm looking on the side to see who has what movies, and Lana has author in a giant VHS box, which is awesome.
Right on, author.
I wonder on this side, like, we talked about what is the movie you're most embarrassed to own, or 45, but what would be the movie? DVD is hard because I have a lot of DVDs I'm embarrassed to own, but what would be the movie that you're most embarrassed to own of, like, a strange movie? I have a glittery Anchor Bay, I think, Can't Stop the Music, that I got for $1.
Nice.
I'm not
I'm not
embarrassed
upset
about
about it.
anything. Like I'm really not embarrassed about anything. So it's hard for me to answer that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of
Pirate
any.
movie. Yeah, pirate movie is another good one.
I can't think of any that I would be embarrassed about, really. Um, I do have kind of a soft spot for dog movies and animal movies and stuff like that. So I've got a lot of like Benji the Hunted and that kind of stuff. You know.
Yeah.
I have the
So-
Mill Creek Ernest box set.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah. It's got like 12 of your favorite Ernest movies.
Oh my God.
Why are you embarrassed
Hey,
about that though?
I'm not embarrassed about it. I enjoy it.
that reminds me, Sam. Didn't you post something about that movie Fast Food the other day with Jim Varney?
Yeah, with him
Yeah.
and Tracy Lords in it.
Yeah, I just watched that again for the first time in like 20 plus years, and that was a lot of fun. That's another. That's a good example of those movies that are just ridiculous, but just entertaining from beginning to end. You know.
That's a good double feature with Hamburger the movie and Hot Dog the movie. Hot Dog the
Okay.
motion picture.
Yeah, those are all fun.
It's hard to be embarrassed about something when I'm already used to, like, I tell somebody I like a movie and I really like it, they'll be like, oh, that movie sucks.
Movies that are people are embarrassed of. We have the CBS All Access channel, which is like $3 a month or whatever. They have Staying Alive on there right now and Grease 2. So it's really a dream month for me to have both those movies in one place to be able to watch them again. I love Staying Alive so much, and I'm not embarrassed to talk about how much I love that movie.
I only saw that once on HBO, and I don't remember a damn thing about it.
It has the Dante's Inferno play that they're all in at the end, and they all dance like Satan on stage. And oh man, it's so good. Directed by Stallone too.
Wow. You know what? I've gotten to a point where I don't even recommend movies to anybody anymore because after years and years of telling people, you know, oh, you should check this movie out, you should check that movie out, and coming back with what the fuck is wrong with you, you know, I just got to a point where I'm like, you know, I'm just not on the same level as, you know, and I'm not trying to say I'm better or whatever, but I'm just saying that, you know, a buddy of mine borrowed a movie from me because he was curious about the title. And he's like, can I borrow that? I want to check it out. Okay, sure. So I give him the movie. He comes back a couple days later. He says, dude, that was the worst piece of shit I ever saw. He's like, that's like 90 minutes of my life I'll never get back, you know? And I'm like, you do know you were watching Blood Orgy of the She-Devils, right? Like, what did you expect? Were you expecting Gone with the Wind? Because it's on you if you were, you know. I mean, come on, man.
Who could have a problem with Blood Orgy of the She-Devils? What kind of a person is that?
We tried introducing my
we're not friends.
Brother-in-law and his fiance to Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, and they made us shut it off in 5 minutes. They said it was too upsetting. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Upsetting?
Yeah, they're like, this movie's too rapey, and I was like,
show them Sallow next time.
Yeah, I know. It's Becca said every time they come over, she's always like, just make sure you don't show them any giallo movies, and don't show. There's all these movies, like these rules of movies I can't show. So I have to think about the things that I would think are acceptable are certainly not acceptable to any human being. So
Matt brought up Rhinestone.
Oh, the Frankenstein song in Rhinestone is amazing.
I just watched that on YouTube last week. It's on YouTube.
Yeah. Did you like it, Bill?
No, it's just the Frankenstein song. I've seen it.
Oh, just the Frankenstein.
That's another HBO movie. I saw that on HBO in like '83, I guess. I don't remember when that came out, but
HBO and HBO back then, it's like if it was on, we watched it. Like I watched Firefox 500 times, the Clint Eastwood movie, and like I bought it a couple weeks ago for like 50 cents in a used bin, and like it's like just like being on HBO all over again. Juana said that no movie can be too rapey, and I would raise you Giallo in Venice, which is one of the rapiest movies I've ever seen. That's as close as I've gotten to being upset by a movie next to like New York Ripper, but I still watched them.
I admitted that I have all the Benji movies, and but I'm not embarrassed. I like dog movies.
Don't be embarrassed about Benji.
Yeah, no, I'm not embarrassed. I think that's probably the I don't know, least manly kind of movie that I have, but you know, whatever. You know, I can't really honestly. I've got my DVD collection. You can't see it, but it's just right over there, and I'm kind of like glancing over, and I'm like, I don't see anything that I would like hide from people if they came over. You know.
There are a lot of movies that I won't recommend to people anymore. Like I've stopped telling people to watch Pink Flamingos.
Oh yeah.
Because now everybody knows who John Waters is, and they think of Hairspray and maybe his like kinder, gentler stuff, and then I tell them to watch Pink Flamingos, and they're just sort of like, oh.
My friend walked out when they played at the Rex Bill. He walked out during Pink Flamingos. He was so upset during the scene where Divine and her son have sex together. He just said, "That's it. I'm leaving." I was like, "This movie's like 25 years old. Like you should have known what you were getting into."
I watched that with my grandma, and she didn't care.
Yeah.
No, she made a joke about it the next day. She was like, "I want eggs, eggs, eggs." She acted offended on some of this stuff. She was like 86 or something when she watched this with me. So she was a Southern lady too. She's like, "Oh, I can't believe y'all are looking at that." But then she sat down and watched it with us, and she thought it was funny too. So she didn't have an attitude about it.
Your grandma's cool, Bill.
She was, yeah. She was awesome.
We have a saying in my family. There's a nomenclature or whatever you want to call it. I'm probably not using the right word, but that is a Stupid Joe movie, where if somebody's talking about a movie that's just really out there, somebody in my family, they'll say, "Was it like a Stupid Joe movie?" You know, and that's just what people call it when it's like, "Oh yeah, it was like a Stupid Joe movie." You
That's
know,
derogatory and way over the line as
that
far as
shit that Joe watches. But it's kind of like in tongue in cheek and kind of in lighthearted ribbing. You know, it's you know.
I was telling Bill earlier, one of my parents' first dates, they went to see Bird with the Crystal Plumage together. And for years, they've talked about that movie that they hate it so much because it didn't make any sense and it was supposed to be so smart. And now they realize that they've raised a son that's probably watched it 5,000 or 6,000 times and can tell you. I tried to explain the end of it to them, and I don't know. It's really hard for somebody that doesn't understand, like the Giallo idea, where really the ending doesn't matter. The art of getting there is what matters, and the idea that who is the killer isn't as important as the identity issues of getting there, and that you don't realize that the victim is the killer. You know, spoiler warnings for a movie that's 50 years old.
Yeah, go for it.
And I was trying to explain it to them, and they're like, "Well, we still don't like it." And I was like, "Okay, like it's fine. You don't have to like it. I'm not hurt." As I've said before, if people hate everything I like, it's usually better. So, I mean, I like Phenomena, which is probably the Argento movie that people hate the most, and that's one of my favorites of his movies.
I adore Phenomena. It's my one of my favorites.
Yeah, I love it. I don't know who wouldn't like that. That's a hard part.
Beck and I have tried to get people to watch it so many times, and they're like, "Wait, why is this orangutan in the movie?" And I'm like, "Just shut the fuck up and watch it. It's great."
You don't question the master.
No. And also, there's like a ton of like the other thing I loved about that movie is the whole scene where she talks about how her mom didn't come home for Christmas is really what happened to Argento. That's like his real life. Like there's a lot of him in that movie, and there's a lot of weird. Beck and I always talk about Jennifer Connelly's roommate in that movie, where she just smokes nonstop. And and then she has a picture up on the wall, and she's like, "Oh, I'd fuck that guy." She's like, "That's my dad." She's like, "Oh, well, he should come visit me."
Yeah, she was marked for death the minute she did those things.
And it starts with Argento's niece's head getting cut off and rolling, like when all the other kids are on the school bus, and you see her head rolling down that stream. It's like, you're in for something completely bonkers. That and the scene where she's like, "I love you all," and all the bugs come out. Oh, man, I'm gonna watch that after this. Actually, it has a ton of Maiden. And it has Maiden in it too, Joe.
What's that?
It has a Maiden. It has Flash of the Blade by Maiden.
Flash of the Blade, yeah, from Power Slave, yeah, and Motorhead. Yeah. Yeah, that's a killer movie. I love it. I absolutely love it. It was the first Argento movie I ever saw was Creepers. you know.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know, when they put out the Phenomena, I think it was help me out, Sam. Who was it that put out the Phenomena? The
Is it Anchor
restored
Bay, I think?
Anchor
Anchor
Bay.
Bay,
Yeah,
yeah, was the first
yeah.
one. Yeah, because
And
I
they
was
put it
like
out.
first in line to buy that when it came out.
Yeah, they put it out.
The
The one I have is a double feature with Inferno. But
yeah.
yeah, when I first saw, that extra 20 minutes or whatever that got cut out, I was like,
Oh,
damn, it's just like a whole different movie. But yeah, I love it. I love that movie.
my big thing is going to half price books because when new stuff comes out from Arrow, all the people that had the old Anchor Bay sets resell them. And I got the Django double brick. It's like a brick of both the Django movies, the Anchor Bay. So I have a ton of Anchor Bay in my collection. I don't really see the difference of now movies are going from Blu-ray to 4K to 4K UHD, and it's like Zombie has been released so many times at this point. I don't know how much better they can make it look outside of beaming it directly into
I
my brain.
know. I mean, like,
Yeah.
why, why do we need this? It keeps coming out. Well,
But I
it's
keep buying
a
it though, and
hobby.
that's the problem.
As long as I can see the movie, that's all I really care about. In fact, Super HD kind of trips me out anyway. I don't think that like Barry Mahon movies were made to be seen in ultra 4K high def. It's like I need that gritty, grainy, poppy. I mean, you guys have seen some of the stuff I've done. I go out of my way to make it look shitty, or what people would call shitty, to make it give it that nostalgic look. I like that grittiness, so
Yeah.
people sometimes start going on about, oh, this is going to be out in Blu-ray and 4K, and I'm like, I don't care, I've
Things that are too high def, you start to lose your sense of imagination, I think. Like there's no imagination. Like when they did the Friday the 13th movie, the original, and then you could see all the prosthetics that they put on the victims. I was like, well, we weren't supposed to see that. Like you couldn't see that when they put it in the film, and it made it better. But then
yeah.
they revealed
Uh,
to
Joe, I got the Barry Mahon movie, Musical Mutiny, finally. I was telling Bill earlier. I've been looking for it for like years, the Something Weird release of it.
Oh yeah, I haven't
Yeah,
seen that one.
it's an Iron Butterfly concert at the Pirate Island, the same place where he filmed Santa Claus and the Ice Cream Bunny.
Oh, okay, I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it. I've got several of his titles on. I have a whole section that's all my Something Weird titles. They have their own spot, their own shelves and everything. So I've seen a
I
lot
want
of
to
it, but I
come to
haven't
your house
seen
and
that.
watch all your movies.
Yeah. You know what other movie got kind of ruined like that for me, Bill, is Manos, the Hands of Fate. When the Blu-ray came out, what I always liked about it was you could never see anything beyond the house. It was just this like house in the midst of darkness.
Yeah,
And when the
yeah.
Blu-ray comes out, you can see city lights in the distance, and it's not as isolated anymore, and it kind of takes a bit away from a piece of shit. I like movies that exist, kind of like the one we watched tonight, that exist in their own weird universe of strange people, and like, especially like Manos, like just leave the house. Everything, what I mean? You don't have to stick around, and you can leave. And nope.
Yeah. Well,
I like
Monos.
movies that leave you with questions.
Yeah, Monos and Marty Robbins are what put El Paso on the map, really. So, there's nothing not to love about Monos.
We got some great comments. Matt Hankey said he showed a little group of 20 some odd year olds Pink Flamingos not too long ago, and they were genuinely shocked. Yeah, I get that too when I show people Pink Flamingos. Aside from I love Leaf's comment. Aside from the obvious crazy stuff in Flamingos, no one talks about the insane amounts of dialogue in it. I talk about it all the time, Leaf, and I say it to people over and over again. But now the people that are closest to me, they know to listen for it, because they used to think I was really saying these things to them for real.
What amazes me about Flamingos too, it had to be shocking in '72 of all the hair color choices where everybody has blue or green or red hair. And I was at Walmart the other day, and everybody has hair color that like, it was a major deal to find Manic Panic in the '80s. Do you know what I mean? Even in the
Yeah.
'80s, so it's like it had to be shocking of how everybody looked.
Well, yeah, they did that with magic markers, I think. David Lockery did his hair with a blue magic marker, and
Yeah,
Stoll, I forget what she used for her hair. Matt asked about Blue Eyes of the Broken Doll, which was also known as The House of Psychotic Women. So I want to know what you guys think of that movie, because you probably already know I love it because Paul Naschy's in it.
You and I saw that
Yeah.
together at the drive-in, Bill, and then you were there too, Sam.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
love that movie.
that was a good one. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That's one of those movies where Becca looks at me halfway through and goes, "This movie's fucking crazy," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know." Like, it doesn't really let up on being crazy.
Yeah,
No, it doesn't.
Paul Naschy gets naked in it, so of course I love it, and he gets to, of course, go to bed with beautiful women.
I just watched him in Dr. Jekyll versus the Werewolf versus El Hombre Lobo, and boy, that's another great one, Bill. If you haven't seen that one, there's a lot of writing Paul Naschy in that.
Yes, I have seen that one. I've seen that one.
I almost just like I was watching it, and it was like I almost sent a screen cap to you as it was happening.
What about Fury of the Wolfman? Have you guys seen that one?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Okay.
that was one of the first horror movies that I used to like watch every time it came on TV, because I think I saw it really late one night and I loved it. So I would look for it in the TV guide.
Okay. I just downloaded it recently. I haven't seen it yet, but I've got it, so it's gonna be watched soon for sure.
I just got the Mondo Macabre Blu-ray of Beast and the Magic Sword, the Naschy movie, which was filmed in Japan, and holy cow, that movie's awesome.
Yeah, you were telling me you loved it.
Yeah, imagine if you took like a Japanese samurai movie with ninjas. There's also a scene where a baby gets ripped out of a uterus by a werewolf. 500 stars out of 3.
That's a good endorsement.
Yeah, I loved it. Like, it's like the cover art is amazing on it to start with, and then it gets even better. Like, it's insane.
Nice.
Leaf wanted to know, you said, what about the footlights around the frame, the light bulbs? Were they scanned off the Media Home Horror Beyond Imagination multi-title video poster, Bill?
They are not. I got them from an actual ad in one of the ads that I collected in the newspaper, and I sort of jazzed them up a little bit. And I use them in every issue of Drive-In Asylum. I'm always putting those lights in there.
I have a question for you, Bill. I've never asked. Of all the ad mats and all the ads and posters you featured, what is your favorite one that you featured?
Oh,
I know
wow.
it's a hard question.
That really is a hard question, because there's so many that I just love. I get really excited when I find the obscure ones, like something that's really super obscure. Like I found an ad for, since we're talking about Brown Rig, I found an ad for Don't Look in the Basement when it was on its original theatrical run. The original title was called The Forgotten. And I found an ad for it playing in Southwest Texas under the title The Forgotten. And I was just so excited about that. And it had many other titles too. Like there was one, Beyond Help, The Snake Pit. And my favorite about those weird titles, Death Ward number 13. Which,
wow.
Hallmark Releasing used that title twice, by the way. They also gave it to the movie The Computer Killers, also known as Horror Hospital. They released that as Death Ward number 13 too. But those are my favorite ads to find, is something that's like an obscure titling of a movie that I already know.
I really like, we've talked about it before, but the poster for They're Coming to Get You is a great poster that does not line up with the movie whatsoever.
Yeah, it's
a great movie. Yeah.
But I want to see the movie that poster is for.
Yeah. But I still love the movie that is actually from it. Edwidge Fenech is a big deal, maybe. I'm super excited about watching the movies next week. I hope everybody else is. Deadly Spawn is great, obviously, and I drew some illustrations of Deadly Spawn for the zine, And I drew them while we were watching Deadly Spawn at the drive-in on my iPad, which was fun. And then Shock obviously is great. It's got some awesome people in it, and an actor who is the bad guy in Your Hunter from the Future, John Steiner, is the new husband. Who, in my favorite scene in that movie, a spoiler if you haven't seen it, his airplane has turbulence because of the way the kid's playing with the toy plane in the one scene.
It's a stunning moment in a stunning film.
It really is. I don't know. It's one of those movies where I'm like, why aren't more people talking about this movie? And I realize it's a 1978 movie, but still, why aren't more people talking about this movie? It's one of those movies that if Vinegar Syndrome put it out, people would be jizzing all over it, as they say in the business.
All right, so we should probably wind it up soon, shouldn't we?
I think so.
Yeah, I have one question left, and I'll be quiet. How much are you going to spend on Friday on the Vinegar Syndrome sale, Bill?
I can't say, but yeah, I wanted to mention that actually. That next week is Vinegar Syndrome's halfway to Friday, Black Friday sale. It's on May 22nd. So make sure you go to Vinegar Syndrome and gorge yourself on their discounted product because it's.
Are you excited about Rad coming out on Blu-ray?
No, but Joe is.
That's what I mean. Joe, I bet Joe's excited about it.
That Rad's coming out on Blu-ray?
Yeah.
I was not aware of that, but now I'm a little giddy.
Yeah. They've been looking for the rights to it for forever. So super excited. And also thank you, Matt, for recognizing my dream in life is that your Italian TV series gets released on Blu-ray, which I own a bootleg of, and that I get to do the commentary, which is basically be 5.5 hours of me screaming about how awesome Yor is, and how much I love Pag in the movie, and how much I love Reb Brown, and also that the girl in Yor is also in Fulci's Devil's Honey, which is an astoundingly junky movie that everybody should own. And that's it. I'll be quiet for the rest of the day. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
It's so unceremonious. Leaf, you posted a couple links in the chat, but I can't actually. I'm having a problem navigating to them, so I don't know what you posted. But if it's a poster for The Forgotten, then yes, you get big nerd points for that. And Craig Edwards says Shock was totally ripped off by the recent The Prodigy.
Mm-hmm. And not as well.
I don't even know what The Prodigy is, so you guys have to help me out with that one.
Yeah, it's a recent release of like a ghost kid kind of movie. Thank you, Matt. Corinne Clary is her name. Thank you. Bill, have you seen Devil's Honey?
I have not. You told me about it. I haven't seen it.
It's the only movie I've ever seen where a guy has sex with a woman with a saxophone. He plays it like this, and she squats over it, and there's a love scene. There's also a love scene with
Kenny G's been doing that for years.
Yeah. Brett Halsey's in it. It's astounding.
It sounds interesting.
It's definitely on my Letterboxd watch list now.
We'll be sending it to you. Thanks, Bill. Thanks for putting this together again this week. This was a lot of fun. And Joe, it was awesome to get to see you and get to see Fulci the dog for a little bit in between.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Sam. It was good to see you guys, too. I've had the pleasure of hanging out with you guys in person, and it's always fun, and this is the next best thing. And glad you got to see Fulci, too. He's over there sleeping right now, but, I know you're one of his biggest fans, so, yeah, he's I'm sure in his own way he was happy to see you, too. Just like the way Cubby was happy when I tried to pet him, Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I had a great time doing this too. And, if everybody wants to keep watching, we'll be back next weekend. We're going to watch The Deadly Spawn and Beyond the Door 2, a.k.a. Shock, directed by Mario Bava. And as you can see by the lighting behind me, at least, I'm a huge Bava fan. So I hope you will come watch movies with us next weekend on the Drive-In Asylum double feature. I want to thank you guys so much for being in the chat tonight and keeping it going. You guys rock. Lana, Leaf, Craig, Matt, John, Mark, RD Francis, and so many other people that just dropped in. Sean Midas, Bill Green. Let's see. Well, I think I called out everybody in the chat, but we'll see you guys next weekend if you'll come back and watch Deadly Spawn and Beyond the Door 2 with us. So Sam, Joe, have a good night, everybody out there. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Under 17 not admitted without parents or guardian.